How can the Rebbe write Zecher Tzadik L'vracha about the Frierdiker Rebbe and simultaneously express appreciation for references made with Shlita?
Let's try and explain this with a story that I heard from a Rabbi writes. He was a bacher in Tafshin Yud in 1950. And the Rebbe would daven 3 times a day. The Rebbe would daven Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv the whole year from Yud Shvat till Yud Shvat. The Rebbe davened for the Amud. After davening, certain people would come over to the Rebbe with questions. The Bachrim, who already saw the Rebbe as Rebbe, didn't have the guts to do that. But some of the older people did come over with questions. And the Bachrim would stand around and listen to hear what people would ask, what people would answer. And so he hears that one day someone comes over to the Rebbe with a Tanya. And he asks the Rebbe the following. In the Haskama of the children of the Alter Rebbe to Igeres HaKodesh and Kuntres Achron, there's the Haskama that's printed in the beginning of Tanya. Each one of the children of the Alter Rebbe signs his name with his father's name, the name of the Alter Rebbe, but each one puts a different title on the Alter Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe writes regarding the Alter Rebbe, Ben le'avi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu Kedosh Yisrael Kedosh Yisrael Marana v'Rabbana. Reb Chaim Avram, the second son of the Alter Rebbe, writes Ben le'avi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu and skips out, doesn't write Kedosh Yisrael Marana v'Rabbana, but doesn't write Kedosh Yisrael. And the third son, Reb Moshe, wrote Avi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu and also didn't write Marana v'Rabbana. So the question that he asked was that he heard, which incidentally the Rebbe does write this answer that this person said in a few times in letters as well as in Shiurim B'Sefer HaTanya, which the Rebbe edited, that Reb Chaim Avram, each one was writing according to the level that they were holding by. The Mittler Rebbe, who was a Rebbe is Kedosh Yisrael, so he was holding on the level of Kedosh Yisrael, so he also referred to his father. In other words, each one related to the Alter Rebbe according to the level that they themselves were holding. Chaim Avram wasn't a Rebbe, so he didn't have the connection of the idea of Kedosh Yisrael. And Reb Moshe, at that time, didn't have smicha yet. He wasn't a Rav, so he didn't write Marana v'Rabbana. And again, this is an answer that the Rebbe himself wrote at later times, so it's definitely a true answer. So not to take from the story that it's not. But this is the story the way it happened. The Rebbe said, what are you saying? Reb Chaim Avram didn't have an appreciation for the level of Kedosh Yisrael. Reb Chaim Avram, we know, was the one who, when the Tzemach Tzedek took on the Nesias, he didn't want to, the Rebbe didn't say this, I'm adding this concept, when the Tzemach Tzedek took on the Nesias, Reb Chaim Avram, the Tzemach Tzedek didn't want to answer questions of Gashmias, questions that people needed brachas in Gashmias. So he would send them to Reb Chaim Avram. Reb Chaim Avram would put on the shtreimel and he would give brachas for children, etc., etc. So he doesn't have a shaykhis Kedosh Yisrael. So the Rebbe said the answer is the following. A Rebbe is done nor einer. There's only one Rebbe. For the Mittler Rebbe, since he was the Rebbe, his Rebbe was still the Alter Rebbe. So he could write about the Alter Rebbe, Kedosh Yisrael, because for him that was his Rebbe. For Reb Chaim Avram, now the Rebbe was the Mittler Rebbe. So he couldn't write any more Kedosh Yisrael about the Alter Rebbe. And then the Rebbe added that Reb Moshe, since he was very young when the Alter Rebbe, by the Alter Rebbe's Histalkos, most of his Torah he learned from others, so he couldn't write Marana v'Rabbana. And it's interesting, this answer, and interesting also that we don't find, to the best of my knowledge, we don't find this answer anywhere in the Rebbe's writings, etc. But it seems like this was an answer that the Rebbe said for that time. Not just for that time, but for now, but which was especially something which was important at that time. The Rebbe, for the Rebbe was the Frierdiker Rebbe. And because for the Rebbe, that was the Rebbe, so he spoke about Nesi Dereinu, and even all the years, Nesi Dereinu, the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's not that the Rebbe didn't know or didn't realize or didn't recognize that for us, the Rebbe is the Rebbe. The Rebbe referred to the Frierdiker Rebbe as Nesi Dereinu. The Rebbe in speech, when the Rebbe spoke, the Rebbe didn't say the words, or at least most of the time, or I don't know of any time that the Rebbe said the words Zecher Tzadik L'vracha about the Frierdiker Rebbe. The people who said Shlit weren't talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, they were talking about the Rebbe. The Rebbe, for the Rebbe Shlit is the Frierdiker Rebbe. When the Rebbe was writing, the Rebbe was writing something for everybody. For us Chassidim in this generation, about the Frierdiker Rebbe, we say Zecher Tzadik L'vracha. The Rebbe was writing things as one way, but when the Rebbe was speaking for himself. But when the Rebbe was speaking for himself, he was speaking also about something which, when he's talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, the question that we have often is, how could the Rebbe say the Frierdiker Rebbe Nesi Dereinu? It gets confusing. Who's Nesi Dereinu? The Frierdiker Rebbe or the Rebbe? They asked this question to the Rebbe during the Sfarim court case. The lawyers went into the Rebbe in Yechidus. And they said to the Rebbe the following: you keep on saying that the Sfarim belong to the Frierdiker Rebbe Nesi Dereinu, but that's not going to help us at all in court. Who do you mean when you say the Rebbe the Shver Nesi Dereinu? And the Rebbe pointed to himself. And the truth is that even if this story is a story that's being confirmed, but even if without using this story, the Rebbe himself writes many times a psak din, that when someone says something about someone else and it's shaykh to him as well, then he's really paskening the din about himself. And the Rebbe writes this many times when he's talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe then says that it says from the Baal Shem Tov, din v'cheshbein, and it says that nifroi min adam midaite v'shaloi midaite. But the point is that the Rebbe explains, when you say something about someone else and it's something which is connected to you, then you're really pasking about yourself. And in that Maimer, in the Sicha, and a few times the Rebbe says it, he's talking about how the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying about someone else, about Moshe Rabbeinu, Mordechai Yehudi, whatever it is, about Rav. The Rebbe says it, for example, that when Rav said about Rabbi, when Rav said about Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, that he is Rabbeinu, he's the leader of the generation, he's the Mashiach of the generation, he meant himself also, because he himself was also the leader of the next generation after the passing of Rabbi. The Rebbe says the same idea with regards to the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is obviously the Rebbe is telling us about himself. So when the Rebbe is talking in speech, the Rebbe is talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe in the same way that we would be talking about the Rebbe, because for the Rebbe continued to be the Frierdiker Rebbe. When the Rebbe is writing something which is for everyone. But when it's something which is connected to us and which we understand how we have to look at it, that we know there's a Rebbe, and there always has to be a Rebbe, and therefore for us there's a Rebbe, and there's continuously a Rebbe, and there always will be a Rebbe who's the leader of our generation.